All right, we are here on the SchmearCast. I'm here with my guest Marta Djordjevic, and Marta, you may have heard her voice before. She called in for the end of year best movies episode. You were on the David Lynch episode recently, but you have not been on the SchmearCast officially. Welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really exciting, a long time coming. I know I'm kind of
Long time.
hard to hunt down, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very happy to have you. For the listeners, we have a glass of wine,
Oh, yes.
blood red color, a memento mori, you could say.
Oh, I like it.
I am referencing the movie we're discussing today. The movie is 28 Years Later. It is a new zombie horror movie directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland. We have a lot to say about it, both of us, and about this series, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. We're going to get into all of that. But first of all, Marta, why don't you just introduce yourself to the listener?
Yeah, definitely.
Listeners, plural.
Yeah, plural.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. I'm a freelance writer, editor, podcaster, currently running my own publication, actually. It's only a few months old. It's called Rewind and Revive. And that focuses on film history, overlooked gems, and why all of that still resonates. I cover everything from deep dives into specific films, filmmakers, production stories, thematic explorations, roundups, so on and so forth. And then there's also a podcast element to that too, called the Rewind and Revive podcast. And that's still in its early stages, but it's going to be building on the old podcast that I used to have called McFly's Movie House. And that ran for a year. And it's just a continuation of the essays I write. So yeah, hands full at all times.
You live for this shit.
I live for this shit.
Listeners, if you could see her background, Marta's background, we have film history books, we have physical media, we have posters, but you're also a cool person. You're not a nerd, in a hermetically sealed cave, right?
Yes, I get it.
You live in the world, but you love movies. And I feel like I've wanted you on in the past, but my issue is that you are watching some amazing 60s French coming-of-age story or some 80s horror, and I can't get you into the present. But for this specific film, I was able to. So why are you joining me today for 28 somethings later, years, weeks, days? What does this series mean to you?
Oh man, it means everything to me. This was 28 Days Later was the reason I got obsessed with zombie movies. And I know technicalities, they're not really zombies, blah, blah. But
someone yelled at me on TikTok for that. And I said, it's a fucking zombie movie. Relax.
What do you think exactly? No, this is the series that sparked my love. I didn't watch it when it came out. When it came out, I was 10, so a bit young. But I watched it a few years after that in high school, and it was just eye-opening. And it's kind of what made me want to start going back and looking at the older zombie movies, especially the stuff by Romero. But this was so novel at the time and so terrifying. And to this day, it's terrifying. So, yeah, I was excited for the new film, and of course I wanted to come on.
28 years later, headline thoughts. What did you think of the movie?
You know what? It surprised me in a good way.
Okay.
I think what Boyle and Garland pulled off was a bold choice. I think it was the right choice, in my opinion. And it leaned into a new energy and shifted gears into something more mournful, which really worked for me.
I think that it is a very impressive film. I think that it's hard to be a blockbuster with head and heart. It's very easy to make a shitty version of a blockbuster, or you can make a very serious thematic film that can't get butts in seats. It's hard to split the difference and to be in the middle of the Venn diagram, and it's something we seek out. I seek out for sure. Because if a movie's going to play in 3,000 theaters on a weekend in North America, I want some substance there, And so infrequently do we get that, but we get it here. So like you, I found this startling, scary, gorgeous visuals. I thought the performances mostly were on point. I was happy to see it as a return to form for Danny Boyle, who's kind of been in the wilderness since that Beatles movie, which I don't have it up in front of me, but I think it made money, which is sad. Did you see Yesterday?
No.
You memory hold that one?
Yes.
Good.
I haven't even seen T2 because I love Trainspotting so much that I'm terrified that this will not hold up.
A director on a bit of a roller coaster of a career, like some insane highs, but I hadn't heard from him in at least a few years. Like you, I found it way more spiritual than expected. Mm-hmm. And then what was maybe most surprising is that it's kind of more of an adventure film than a horror movie and a coming of age story.
I thought it was like a folk coming of age tale. There we go.
I too was surprised. I think audiences are as well, mostly in a positive kind of way, but I could see it, maybe surprising people in the wrong way. Let's start off by talking about zombie movies. You mentioned George Romero at the top. What is a zombie? And what have zombie movies thematically, subtextually kind of been about?
Yeah, I'm really glad you're asking this. Yeah, like I said, my zombie movie bag really starts with the Romero era, like Night of the Living Dead, 1968, which essentially solidified the modern zombie as slow moving, or it did for a while, as slow moving.
What's your definition of a zombie? I just want to try you out for size.
It's hard, because I am a traditionalist, but at the same time, I feel like if this was ever to happen, it would happen like what we see in 28 Days Later, in 28 whatevers later.
Right.
So I don't know. I will say I am a traditionalist.
It's the undead. Is that the traditional reading?
Yes, an undead that feed on flesh.
And then the 28 would be an infected.
Yes. If we're really going to get into the...
I'm getting into it. Let's go. I want to get into the taxonomy of zombies.
But so even before Romero did all of that, from what I understand from my film history books, and I haven't watched it, so I can't really say too much there, but zombies originated from Haitian folklore. They were tied to colonial fear. One great example is White Zombie from 1932, which, like I said... haven't seen yet, but I want to. So it goes way farther back than the 60s.
Wow.
But so then Romero comes along and zombies start serving as this vessel for social commentary, right?
Right,
you have
right.
Night of the Living Dead, civil unrest, race relations in the late 60s, Dawn of the Dead, that's the 70s now. Consumerism is front and center. And then by the time we get to Day of the Dead in the 80s, it's about military overreach, authoritarianism, isolation. So there's always that sort of sociopolitical undercurrent. And that's what I love about the genre. All of this is happening in the midnight movie space at the time, especially Romero's early films. So then it becomes a part of this broader counterculture movement. And so these movies were always reflecting back to the society in ways in which it has failed, in which it has failed us, right? 28 Days Later hits, that's what, early 2000s?
2002.
Yeah, we enter then the era of the fast zombie.
Right.
And then that metaphor suddenly shifts again. It keeps shifting, and now it's about infection, pandemics, global collapse, things that we're still thinking about. And so then that metaphor becomes about how quickly social order breaks down. And zombies, as we know now, were never the real threat in any of these movies. It's always man himself, and it's kind of looking at us like a mirror. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this.
All right, I think let's just shut down the pod. You covered it all. That was too perfectly said for us to continue. No, that's great. And one more thing I'd add, which sounds silly, but death, and just representing death. And I think that can be forgotten when you are projecting all of these issues onto the zombies, as you so brilliantly, eloquently said. I think this movie, 28 years later, gets at death and what it means when you're living and how you fear it or respect it or welcome it. And I love that aspect of this film.
Yeah, it's beautifully put also.
Before we get into 28 Days Later, let's talk about Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. I just mentioned that Danny Boyle kind of is hard to pin down as a director. He is extremely unique. His films include Trainspotting, Slumdog Millionaire, 28 Days Later, 127 Hours, Sunshine. And there's some less good ones, like Yesterday, which might be an aberration on his dance card. What makes a Danny Boyle film?
Good question. I think he doesn't shy away from the ugliness or the harshness of the world, particularly in the movies that you just listed, the good ones. But then he always still manages to find that beauty and hope in the grime.
He believes in people.
Yeah.
He believes in humanity winning even through the darkness. I think his movies are really about survival. They have a ton of energy, which isn't a theme, but it's a feeling that I think he's always conveying. They are sort of morally gray and ambiguous, but always, I think you're right, coming out on the side of the goodness of humans. And that's why he has this amazing counterbalance in Alex Garland, who believes that we should not exist, perhaps, as humans, and is the coldest, iciest motherfucker making shit right now. True. I love Alex Garland. What do you think of Alex Garland? The writer here of 28 Years Later, and the writer of 28 Days Later. Civil War he wrote and directed last year. Warfare he co-wrote, co-directed earlier this year. Annihilation, a personal favorite of mine. Ex Machina. Men, which maybe tarnished his record, but some people love Men. What do you think of Alex Garland? Also a British fellow.
I prefer him more as a writer than a filmmaker.
Okay.
That being said, he has some films that I really do love. Ex Machina and Annihilation. I haven't seen Warfare yet. I know.
I didn't say anything
tonight.
You're talking.
I know, but everyone's
you're
just
talking.
Always...
You're talking to me like I'm accusing you. I'm right here.
No, it's just everyone always clutches
fun.
their pearls whenever I say I haven't seen.
Pearls are not clutched here. You know.
Thank you. So yeah, I can't speak to Warfare just yet, but as you mentioned, I truly hated Men, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But I think Ex Machina, especially, that's my personal favorite of his. I just rewatched it on a plane, and it's still fabulous on a tiny screen.
Talk about prescient, all about AI, like maybe predating the current conversation by 10 years. Like that's wild. Very smart guy. Lets you know that he's smart, and if there's an issue with him, it might be that. He wrote Sunshine too, which is a movie I just watched and was blown away by. Real science guy. And I could tell his North Star, his favorite director is Andrei Tarkovsky, and how science is blending with psychology so often in Tarkovsky's films. Alex Garland, always about philosophy, politics, but then always like the dark souls of humans that, like you said, the zombies aren't the problem, we're the problem. Like that's coming from Alex Garland. Danny Boyle is the driving force, helping the character survive, helping Cillian Murphy get through the trials and tribulations of 28 Days Later. So they're really nice peanut butter and jelly kind of situation, the two of them. So it's great to see them reunited.
I was actually listening to a podcast episode with Mark Kermode recently, it was an interview actually with Danny Boyle, and Danny Boyle mentioned how he's known to butt heads with Garland because of that pessimism that he has. Or he didn't call it pessimism, but that was pretty much what he meant.
Yeah.
So I would love to have just seen that sort of...
Did he say how they get through that?
No, he didn't.
Work it out on the page?
He was raving about working with Garland, but that was an interesting thing that stuck out to me, is that they clearly do tend to clash sometimes, because one is super spiritual and hopeful, and the other is a bit more nihilistic.
Writer-director combos are special when they work. Do you have a favorite Danny Boyle film? Could be
28 Days Later or Trainspotting.
Nice. It's a recency bias, but I thought Sunshine was amazing. No, I love Trainspotting as well. That would probably be my pick. What about Alex Garland?
Man, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
It would be Ex Machina for me.
Okay.
Annihilation for you?
Yeah. So let's talk about 28 Days Later, because I think a lot of people are watching it for the first time to catch up for 28 Years Later. So that's amazing to see. But I'm a little surprised because some people are calling it average or not finding it so special. I think they're just wrong. So my question to you is, what makes 28 Days Later so great? Because we both agree that it is that great.
I hate to be that guy, but I feel sometimes it's one of those situations of you just had to be there. Like, you just had to live through the early or even mid 2000s and understand like how novel this was, you know, like
right.
running zombies.
Right.
That's terrifying. And then you have it shot on digital too, which, I mean, we can get into why that was done that way, but the entire thing is just ugly and filled with this dread. So the argument that I'm seeing repeatedly to this, like on Letterboxd recently, of, you know, it's so ugly I couldn't watch it. I wish people could just get past that and maybe ask themselves, well, why was it done this way? Why is that final shot in the movie all of a sudden 35 millimeter and not digital? Like there's a lot to think about, I think. And I mean, it's just iconic. It's influenced so much to this day.
That was basically my point, which is just like, what has come since? We're not getting that if we're not getting 28 Days Later. And
the intro of Walking Dead.
I mean, Walking Dead, Shaun of the Dead, The Last of Us, like all of it. This is the text for it. It feels hyper real with that digital video style, but it is extremely stylized. Like there's almost like a pop or EDM beat throughout the entire movie that is just the Danny Boyle signature to really rev you up that I loved. I think the performances are great. Cillian Murphy, Brendan Gleeson, Naomi Harris, Christopher Eccleston. And something that was different with this movie is that these are not superheroes, they're just humans. Mm-hmm. They are fallible. Sometimes they don't know what to do in this situation. And I think some of the pleasure and excitement and danger and fear of the movie is kind of relating to these characters. These are not folks that are like, have superhuman strength, like pulling the door away to let the children through. Like, it is not that. These are just people. It forces you to think, what would I do in this situation? How would I be in the in the infected invasion? And then I really think, like, rewatching it, the emptied out London,
I was gonna say,
is just the craziest thing I can imagine.
Well, from what I understood, and I could be wrong, they used handheld digital cameras so they could be quick and do everything really fast. Because apparently they were shutting down major streets and monuments and areas. So they didn't have that much time per location. So it was just really like a get in and get out sort of situation.
Yeah, they closed off some streets for, they would only get about 30 minutes of time to close it out. And then those cameras come into use, you know? Crack of dawn. It had to be done. Crack of dawn. And what you see, it's just like hard to believe you're witnessing one of the biggest metropolitan cities in the world, one of the busiest, just so emptied out. And now you would CGI that. Now you would fix it in post. Nope, they just did it. And like, I just rewatching it, I was just so struck by that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite horror film openings of all time, hands down. If not the favorite horror opening.
Yeah. And then this, a good horror movie, this is always the case, but this is a good horror movie, and this is the case, but we are the horror is true, and it's right here. You know, and I think that's the Alex Garland of it. At the end, this army base turns out to be completely sexual, assaulty, authoritarian, evil, awful. It wasn't the zombies, it's them. It's the call is in the house. And then also at the beginning, and this is what I kind of forgot, this monkey who's infected with the rage virus is let out by these leftists. I'm sure that they had noble intentions, but they screwed the pooch with that one. So that's classic Alex Garland for all sides to be culpable and for him to be skeptical of everyone involved in any situation. I respect that.
Yeah, I was thinking because I rewatched it as well, I was like, man, that guy even warned you. He even said, don't do this. They are infected.
Listen, animal cruelty is a terrible thing. Letting out a cruel animal subjected to animal cruelty could be an even worse thing.
There you go.
Everyone's a loser. We mentioned the influence, the fast zombies. World War Z is another one. That's another example.
Train to Busan.
Yep. It's very scary because, you know, old zombies would go, oh, you know, they like hold their hands out at you. Scooby-Doo, you could just fucking run away from those folks. Yeah. Can't run away from a fast zombie.
But this is what I mean. It's so realistic. Like, even the concept, I think Boyle and Garland, I should say, took inspiration from rabies. And it really made me think about it in a sense of if this was ever to happen, this is what it would be like.
Right.
They would run. They would not stumble.
So the film was a huge success. The influence is insane, as we've mentioned, but it made also a ton of money. 2007 comes 28 weeks later. I don't know why or how Garland and Boyle are now out of the picture. In comes Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. I watched 28 Weeks Later for the first time a couple weeks ago.
What'd you think?
I thought this movie was amazing. I imagined or expected it to be just the shitty sequel that should be forgotten about, that should be written off, that should even be potentially ignored. And I watch it and I love this movie. It is, to me, scarier, meaner, darker. It's doing a lot of really impressive stuff. I am glad that I watched this in the lead up to 28 Years Later.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's important to watch both. I was honestly quite shocked to log on to Letterboxd and see just how much people hate this. People hate this film. And that made me nervous because while I've seen 28 Days Later so many times, 28 Weeks Later, I think I've only maybe seen once or twice. And that was closer to around the time that it came out.
Right.
And I liked it a lot more initially. My rating went a bit down this time, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was a fine movie, middle of the road for me. But it's different tonally, and that's what didn't work for me. And it looks like that's what worked for you. But that lack of hopefulness, which you liked in this, I missed. It was very mean. There was zero redemption.
Yep.
Most of the characters, save for Doyle. I like Doyle. And I can't remember her name, the doctor. But save for those two, who else is truly redeemable in this film, right?
Right. Hard to latch on to any protagonist.
Yeah, I mean, the kids are just... Come on. Very stressful. But the opening sequence I thought was absolutely incredible. From what I understand, that was directed by Boyle.
Right. I heard that.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, that's also such an iconic opening. It's different to 28 Days Later, tonally, but I think it's just as effective.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about the film before this recent rewatch, I thought to myself, well, what do I really remember about this movie? And it was only that intro. So there's elements about it that I like. That being said, I think it lacks the emotional punch of the first.
Right. It's just relentless brutality.
Yeah.
But it's pretty evocative. The 2007 Iraq War, in the midst of it, this is about the U.S. military taking over London, issuing pretty quickly a code red execution order for everyone. I was just kind of like shocked that I was seeing this. I was just like, holy hell, they really are going to some of these places. Characters that you like, that you expect in a normal movie to make it through to the end, are definitely not. And getting killed in some awful ways. So I don't know. Maybe my surprise is really just what overcame me with this.
Maybe it's good that you thought it was going to be awful. Maybe it's good that you saw those 1-star Letterboxd reviews.
All right, so we've discussed it. The themes of the 28 Years, Days, Weeks franchise. Survival and just the human will to survive. I think that's something we said Danny Boyle's really all about. Societal collapse, as you mentioned. I think also just the choices that we make put this awful situation on the ground level of humans dealing with it. I think sounds obvious, but isn't, and I think these movies really do that well. Power, how power corrupts always. I think when you have a situation like this, the infected, it's a stand-in for any type of situation, but like, what do you do in that moment? Who's going to rise to the moment to be helpful and who's going to take advantage of it? I think we're just saying realism. Like, these movies have realism for a genre film. I believe that's what people appreciate about them.
Now that I'm thinking about it, listening to you describe all of this, even though I appreciate Boyle's hopefulness and it's something that I crave, I really think that Garland is right on the money for how things will end up with his more pessimistic look.
All right, well, let's see how they temper each other with 28 Years Later. Boyle and Garland wanted to make this film. The fans wanted it, but it was stuck in development hell. I don't know how or when or why, but somehow the story got cracked. I think because Garland was conceiving this as a new trilogy. I think that's what got him excited. Danny Boyle was excited, wanted to do it. So they also had the cast, some of the original cast, specifically Cillian Murphy, interested in returning. And, that guy wins a Best Actor Oscar. Now we're cooking with butane, as they say. He doesn't show up in this film. In this film is Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, who we will discuss who he plays when we announce some spoilers. Alfie Williams, young Alfie Williams, playing a boy named Spike. Those are the main players. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
All right,
that one Swedish guy, but yeah.
Yes, there's the Swedish guy. And there's Samson, the alpha.
Yes.
And what he's working with. All right. Yes. 28 years later, set decades after the outbreak of the rage virus, it follows a quarantined Britain where a fragile community survives on the island of Lindisfarne. When a boy named Spike and his father named Jamie venture to the mainland, they encounter mutated, infected, a haunted survivor doctor named Kelson, and eerie remnants of the past. As Spike drifts further from his father, he embarks on a harrowing journey that forces him to confront mortality, legacy, and the twisted aftermath of a broken world. Marta, let's talk about this movie.
Yeah, let's talk about this movie.
All right, so let's talk about what worked within it. You said at the top you were surprised by it. That seemed to be positive surprise, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what were you struck by most in this film?
The emotional core, again, even though it doesn't start off that way, actually, I think that the way the film opened, up until the first half hour or so, that was stunning.
Okay.
And energetic. The introduction to Spike and his father, Jamie, right?
Yep.
Also great. Just that whole first chunk.
Let's talk about the first act. I had that down as well. Spike lives on this island that is cut off from the mainland. Now, the metaphor of this being Brexit related is right there for you. These islanders are survivalists. They seem like they got their shit together. They know how to deal with zombies 28 years later. They have this causeway that separates from the mainland, which just as a plot device, so evocative, so good. Spike is off to the mainland with his father in a coming-of-age rite or ritual that feels like he's off to war. Like he's being celebrated going down the street. Like it should be a cakewalk, almost.
Yeah.
Obviously, they get to the mainland, shit goes nuts. What are you thinking with this opening, with this setup, and then once they reach the mainland?
That's exactly what I loved. I think I had the exact same thoughts as you, that it felt like him going to war. Then you get those montages, the cutting between, what was it, King Henry V was the film. And then at the same time, you have that 1915 recording of Boots, right?
Horrifying.
And all of this is coming together as Spike is walking.
Right.
And you read that's when it hits you. Like they're spelling it out without spelling it out. The movie's about, intergenerational trauma and indoctrination and the way society has regressed, as you said. I mean, it looks like a village and I don't even know what time.
Yeah.
And how they're using nostalgia to influence these children, right? I thought that was really interesting, just the way society has gone back and the ways that they're trying to survive. And I think that was a great way to introduce all of that to us.
Yeah. With his father, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. They get to the mainland, and it's just this grand guignol of horror. Like, shit just doesn't stop, and I love that about this. Like, for 40-ish minutes, it is relentless. We have these chubby zombies that attack them. Those are new. We have that infrared night vision to show these, like, grubby zombies as well, infected. Sorry, this won't be the last time I do this. That's all happening, I think, in that montage of that Boots poem being recited, the Rudyard Kipling poem that's in the trailer that scared me shitless, honestly.
Did you hear that wasn't supposed to be in the film?
No.
It was just, they did it just for the trailer. And apparently,
because the reaction to the trailer was so strong.
Exactly. And then they put it in the film, and I'm so glad they did, because it's terrifying.
Yeah. I saw that trailer won every trailer award. There's like a trailer awards, and that won all of them. All of this is just like great, gripping my seat, like the sense of adventure I mentioned mixed with horror, like the fact that it's shot on location, outside, practical effect. That's really where I start my entry into what I liked about the film, is the filmmaking, which I forgot, and I shouldn't have, but you do when, there's a bit of a slump, but you forget just how kinetic of a director, how weird of a director Danny Boyle is. His filmmaking just feels alive constantly. Like, you can never rest in this film in a good way.
It's great to see that he worked again with Dod Mantle from 28 Days. I mean, they worked together on other films, but particularly that film, and to see him behind the camera, or iPhones, I guess. Right.
That's a huge point we should mention. So this was shot, I don't know, only on, but mainly on iPhones. Sometimes with a rig of like 40 iPhones, which this photo went viral. What do you think that achieves or captures? And what's the statement there?
I mean, I think it's our generation's version of what he was doing before with the digital. The concept of it being surveillance. Did you notice some of the shots were very similar to 28 Days, where it's coming from like a corner? It does look very surveillance-y. I would say maybe to continue that, to try something new and novel, how he did before. And there are some sequences that are genuinely terrifying, even on an iPhone.
So does that heighten the realism for you, or are you distracted by the hyper-real look? Because I think that's an interesting distinction. I feel like on one hand, you could be totally aware of what's happening formally, that it could take you out, or it could pull you in, or it could do both.
Did not take me out at all. Did it take you out?
No, it's notable. Like, it's hard to ignore that, like, what you're seeing is different from the average movie.
I mean, I see it as a continuation of what he did 23 years ago. Yeah, just something new. It's, yeah, like I said, our generation's take on what was done then.
Right. Very fresh. My takeaway, though, and I'm curious if you have some favorite shots in this, but just Danny Boyle as an image maker. Every director is an image maker. I get it. I know. But I'm saying specifically, he'll make moments matter. They'll evoke a feeling that the average director might not be able to pull off. Whether that's the staging, the blocking, the light, like whatever it is, like he'll present something to you that's kind of like a gut punch visually. I have not come to expect that from a blockbuster, and I love that. I have a few favorite shots in this, but specifically there's this moment in that first act, these zombies silhouetted on the horizon around this huge tree. We could be 200 yards out from them, and they're not moving. They're just like there, waiting. And it's sunset, so you're feeling very icky about how scary this moment is, but how beautiful the sunset is. And it creates a sensation in me that I'm just like, whoa.
It felt like if Terrence Malick was to do a zombie movie.
Yes, and it affected me. Like, I think that's awesome because, again, my expectation with a horror movie, with a blockbuster, like, I'm not expecting something so imagistic like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one really stood out for me too. Also, just them leaving the island, that made me nervous instantly because I just knew they're emphasizing the causeway. This is going to be important for one reason or another. And then it is. And just seeing how it stretches out while we're being told that, the tide will go up and then they won't be able to go back for a while.
And that poem is being recited and you're like, stop, scary poem,
yes.
Please leave. I love the images in this. I love that nothing's in the frame for a bad reason. Like, everything's considered. And, the kills, like, I thought those were really interesting.
They're kind of video gamey.
They're very pleasurable. They're almost desensitizing because I think that's also a major theme of this. Like, how much humanity or lack thereof do the zombies have? Do the infected have?
Exactly.
Because they get shot with an arrow through the eye. You're like, great, got one. If they're moving so slowly or have a family, where's the line?
Mm-hmm. And we see that explored later.
Right. I think that they really care about that in this film. But the kills themselves, like, could you tell what was happening in terms of the filmmaking?
Sometimes, in terms of the filmmaking, no, not really. Honestly, I really want to sit down and kind of learn about how they did all this. I did see that one famous shot of, like, I don't know how many iPhones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to know how this was done.
It seemed like
fascinating.
The camera would stop or it would turn into extreme slow-mo at the point of impact and then speed up again. Mm-hmm. Knowing Anthony Dodd Mantle, I'm sure he did some wizardry, like he slowed it down to this amount and then he sped it up to that, and like just creates a feeling of unreality that is that kind of video game feeling. Back to the image, it's like horror in nature I'm into. This tension between the beauty of an overgrown world where civilization has ended with infected hordes of zombies all over the place. Like, that's just good.
Do you prefer that to the ground zero aspect of 28 days later being so early on, or do you prefer
I think it's a good choice to stray a little bit from what's been done before.
No, I agree with you.
You mentioned like folk horror, and I felt like Wicker Man's like a huge influence on this. Mm-hmm. And I know you don't like Men, but Alex Garland was after that a little bit. Just like England is such an old country with so much history. And so you have these locations, these houses, these castles, these cloisters that are just overgrown, which is very haunting and disturbing. And then you see like the wind turbines and they've stopped moving and they're all mossy. Or in that first act, like I just was seeing image after image that was kind of taking my breath away. The hanging man in the house, like that was terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. And I knew he was going to wiggle. I guess spoiler.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil this. It's a hard movie not to.
The wind turbines you mentioned though were beautiful, and that was such a great contrast because you see them as well in 28 Days Later, but they're spinning. Right. I thought that was a nice.
They do. Oh yeah, you're right. Or just like shooting from the perspective of like overgrown wildflowers. Like the movie doesn't have to do this. It doesn't have to commune with nature like it is. But I think that's part of the point. Mm-hmm. The Dr. Kelson story, the legend, I should say. Before we know the reality, we're being told this haunting story, very like Apocalypse Now, like very foreboding, ominous, but is the narrator reliable? And that's the question. But Spike's dad is describing seeing Dr. Kelson with hundreds of bodies piled up. And you're like, that's terrifying. And then they show you that image. 300 extras, maybe more, lying on the ground. They're going there.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
But okay, maybe this is just going to make me seem like an absolutely deranged person, and that's okay. But when he was telling the story and showing all those bodies, I honestly thought to myself, like, well, maybe he's just being practical. Like, maybe he's just cleaning the area. My mind didn't immediately go to, wow, this is absolutely horrendous.
Like, it's not madness personified.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out you were right, your instincts.
There you go.
Dr. Kelson, a real doctor.
Yeah.
With a true Hippocratic oath. First act ends with that breathless run to the causeway, back to the island. Aurora Borealis in the background. Moonlit. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is incredible. Mm-hmm. What were you thinking during this?
Oh, I had the clammiest hands. I was so unwell. I mean, obviously they were going to be okay, but boy, did they ever wait until the very last second. No, I think everything up until this point was working for me.
I loved what happened when Spike and his father return, because this is the humans are worse than zombies. Like, the filmmaking here is arguably scarier than when we're dealing with the infected. Mm-hmm. It's this pub scene of so much raucous, violent, mostly masculine energy that feels so gross, because we know how perilous this mission to the mainland was. But what Jamie, Aaron Taylor Johnson, is doing is fudging the truth. He's burnishing the legend. He's just lying through his teeth. And you see it register on Spike that his dad's a liar, and then his dad goes off and does something terrible again. Mm-hmm. I really appreciated it being brought back to the human, I should say. Yeah.
And again, just a great example of, as we were saying, how much they regressed. Like, that party was borderline feral, as you mentioned. And it was more anxiety-inducing than celebratory.
Right.
Yeah, it was an interesting contrast to see, because initially when you see them putting out the cakes and stuff, like the rest of the villagers, while they were still on the mainland, I thought to myself, like, oh, this is how cute. They're throwing him like a nice welcome home. And then what it just turns into was just nothing like what I expected to see.
Right. Absolute bedlam. So amidst all this, maybe we could save this for what I didn't like, is Spike's mother, Isla, maybe, played by Jodie Comer, is sick with a malady that isn't identifiable. This is why Spike wants to go find the doctor, even though he's so infamous. He wants to take his mother there. What do you think of Jodie Comer in this moment, and how, we're introduced to her character, I should say?
I think it bothered me more as the film went on. At this point, it didn't bug me that much. Maybe I should save what bothered me for later on, or I can tell you now. It felt a bit undercooked. Mm-hmm. I thought she was fine, but I kind of wish we got to see more, particularly with her relationship with her husband. That's kind of where it started for me. We just barely see them interact, or he doesn't talk about his wife, which I guess maybe was the point because of what happens, but I felt like there was a bit more there that could have been explored.
I think Jodie Comer is an exceptional actress, and I thought she was really good here, but I was so annoyed by the character and the lack of agency they had. And, she's sick, and I get it, she's playing a sick character, but it doesn't make it easy to watch. She plays sick well, but it's a character without agency. It's hard to watch her just being bedridden. Like, it's just not fun. I don't need the movie to be fun, but, like, this is a world, an infected world, where action is everything. Mm-hmm. And you're rendering her bedridden. It just, like, sucks to see an actress have to be, like, so addled and play confused. It ends in a place that works, I think, mostly, but I didn't like how it got there.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised. Especially because I've seen her doing, like, the press tour with Boyle himself, so I never in a million years would have assumed that she spends 90% of the movie as confused as she is. I also think it makes some elements that come later on a bit confusing. There's one scene that I'm sure we'll cover later, but that seemed very odd given everything that we know about her.
This is a good place to transition, because she kind of ushers in the second act of the film. Where Spike has now returned. He wants to go to Dr. Kelson, find him, whatever it takes to help identify what's wrong with his mom. I thought this didn't quite work for me in the sense that he was scared shitless by zombies, couldn't even knock his arrow, and now suddenly he's ready to go off the island with his mother. It's a big turn just off of hearing one story.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I agree. I thought about that myself as well. I actually had flashbacks to 28 Weeks Later when I was like, oh my God, kid leaving a safe area again. Like, we're not doing this again.
Right.
That being said, I kind of chalked it up to, it was his first time he was nervous. Now he has somebody to protect. Because up until that point, we kind of do see him as almost like a parental figure to his mother, right? Because his dad doesn't care at all.
Right.
And so I thought maybe with her there, that's when it kind of clicks for him,
Yep.
I gotta lock this in. I gotta be serious about this.
Yeah.
So I kind of let that slide. I think that bothered me less than it did you.
Okay. Well, what you're saying kind of gets to a interesting kind of Oedipal feeling that I got here, where Spike is so angry with his father. He witnesses this primal scene, so to speak. Now we're getting Freudian, but we got our wine. It's a Monday night as we record. Switch. He pulls a knife on his dad, and he's so upset with him. And I don't remember what he says, but it's effectively, I know what you did. I'm taking mom to help something. I'm becoming the man. I want to kill you to save mom. And I thought that was fascinating, but maybe a little too much psychology and at a little too little of a moment. Like I picked up the emanations. I just wasn't getting the execution. Because then it continues. They go on this journey now, and now we're getting into the second act where she is so addled, so confused. She's calling her son her father. It's getting a little weird, It's hinted at. I am certain that Alex Garland is a genius. He knows what he's doing. He knows this connection. Maybe it's just not the kind of movie to be able to execute that fully when you need to be thrilling people too.
I wish that was more explored. I think my biggest problems with this film, and I say that in air quotations because I really did love this film a lot.
Right.
But the problems that I did have with it are condensed to their family dynamic. I wish there were more scenes between Spike and his father as well.
Yeah.
I wish that was expanded upon more.
It was a great little moment where he gives Spike the bacon.
Yes.
Or an extra egg or something. And Spike's like, he says, I already had it. And Spike's like, you didn't. I know. And he just lets it go. And I like a little more humanity. This movie's got tons of humanity. I don't want people thinking it doesn't. But a few more scenes like that could have gone a long way, I think.
I agree.
I kind of had this. All right, so Spike is now journeying to the mainland with his mother. As you can imagine, they are beset on all sides by infected. What do you think of this odd kind of scene where they're asleep? Spike kind of like wakes up. A zombie's creeping and crawling ahead. He wakes up and the zombie's bashed to pieces. And then that flash that his mother did that. That was a kind of an odd moment.
That's what I was referring to earlier.
Okay.
When I was like, this is a bit out of character. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, it felt like maybe there was more of that. This like Isla being a night walker, like that just wakes up at night, has lucidity, like has the fight in her, but maybe scenes like that were cut because it feels like this is a thread that wasn't fully continued on.
And I wish it was, because I kind of had a feeling that maybe, before she got sick, that she was this very strong zombie infected killer.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I really wish that was explored more, because as it stands right now as a standalone scene, it's just a bit odd.
So they pick up along the way Eric from Sweden, from the Swedish army. Pretty cool moment to see, just in a very like gunless movie, like a good gun battle set piece.
And an iPhone.
Yes, it leaves one survivor, Eric. Don't have this actor's name in front of me, but he came in pretty big and hot. A little too much to my liking. Did you like what Eric was putting down?
I did.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't exactly a fantastic guy, but yeah, I liked him.
Gets the best joke in the movie.
Which one?
About his girlfriend, when he shows the picture of the girlfriend. That was very funny.
That was amazing. My theater was just howling.
Good. Around this moment, Eric, Isla, and Spike are avoiding the alpha zombie. The alpha zombie is huge, naked, bearded, massive schlong. Let's just say it. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Were you down with his like spine ripping maneuver? Because I thought that's like you're kind of treading in Predator's waters. It was a little genre for me. It took me out a tad, but it is pretty badass to see a zombie rip a human spine and just swing it around.
Did it take you out because of the strength that didn't seem realistic?
No, it just like it was a little like cartoonish in the right movie. I'm fucking with that. In this, maybe it's not feeling so real, you know?
Mm-hmm. It didn't bother me. Initially, I was a bit on the fence as I was watching it about the whole alpha zombie, you know, they're smarter, this and that. But then I really let it kind of sit with me for a little bit longer. And I was like, you know what? It's been almost 3 decades. They're clearly trying to say that they've evolved. They're like kind of bathing as well, splashing themselves with water. So I think I accepted it when I kind of came to that conclusion that they will inevitably evolve.
Right. They're birthing too.
Yes, which, wasn't
the
expecting
line
that.
Between infected and human, I think it's getting it's shrinking, you know? I think that's the point. To also put into relief like that opening moment of Spike getting his first kill. Sorry to backtrack, but I love that scene because it's just so icky, you know? Like he's not in peril, he's not in danger. It's not an honest, genuine kill. It's more like hunting for sport.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly what it looked like.
And it makes you feel bad. Around this point, we finally meet Dr. Kelson. I don't remember how he comes in specifically.
He saves them from the alpha.
He saves them from the alpha with his little blow dart.
Yeah, because they were in the not at the train car, the tram car.
Right. Eric gets spined.
Yes.
And Dr. Kelson shows up, played by the inimitable Ralph Fiennes. What are you thinking of Dr. Kelson, Ralph Fiennes, in this moment, in these early scenes of him?
Immediately beaming. As soon as we see his face. I mean, he just looks like he's having the time of his life in this role. Truly. And he's covered in... It was kind of Cannibal Holocaust-y for me. Because he's covered in all that red. What is it? Iodine?
Iodine.
That was one thing, I guess.
I was thinking Colonel Kurtz.
Ah, yes. Yes.
I'm sure it's both.
Probably both. Also, like, where did he get all that iodine? But that's besides the point. Yeah, no, I loved his introduction. I was so immediately, like, locked in again.
Right.
What about you?
It was great because I was lagging a bit, and this kind of fired me up because he's just that talented and great of an actor. Mm-hmm. We're false-footed to think he's a supervillain. He turns out to be the best guy in this entire world, probably. What was he kind of teaching Spike, I guess?
I guess to remain human, to go back to these things that matter, because, I mean, Spike not really, but that whole village is losing any sense of humanity.
Right.
Right? And he just wants...
They're putting death very far away.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And he's just bringing it back.
He's the death man. He loves it. He lives amongst the dead, infected and humans.
Yeah, it's a very
bones
soft
everywhere.
Character.
Yeah, very soulful, very, very sweet.
Remember the grief, remembrance in general, right? There's so many themes there.
Is this where you were most surprised? Because I think here, this final act, the fact that the action is so front-loaded in this movie, and then this final act is so meditative and sweet, almost, weirdly.
That's what surprised me the most, exactly. To the point where I was, like, holding back tears. I don't know when that's ever happened with me in a zombie movie.
Right. So Kelson says that he's not sure, but he thinks Spike's mom has cancer that is inoperable. He speaks very frankly. And I feel like Spike maybe has not received that in his life.
No.
Whether the community tells lies or his father tells lies.
He doesn't know, right?
This is the first person speaking honestly. I love this moment. I think Spike says something along the lines of, like, will she die? And he's just like, yes. But it's spoken with a plainness and a matter of fact kindness that I respected, you know? I like knew he was going to say it, and then he said it, and I was like, because that's how Kelson goes, you know? That's how he operates. So he basically is a death doula. Like, I turned to my friend I was watching it with. I was like, he's doing an assisted suicide, effectively, on Isla. He has blown one of his darts into Spike of morphine. So Spike's kind of drugged up. And it's this really bizarre scene, this trippy moment. Kelson walks Isla into the forest, kills her humanely, we can imagine, but it's done off screen. Mm-hmm. We've already seen that he has this whole skeleton cleaning process, which is so gross, but also so satisfying to watch. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, Spike, here's your mom's skull. And Spike's like, yes, sir. And he puts it, he says, find a good place on it. He puts it on the top of this pyre. And I'm just like, what am I watching? But I like it, you know? Like, I like the message. Mm-hmm. Memento mori, he keeps saying.
Yes.
Remember death. Mm-hmm. Face death. And I'm just shocked that I was getting this in this movie. And again, like, movies usually ascend to a climax. This was kind of descending to a meditative moment and a humane, personal moment. So that was really something to behold.
Memento mori, that was beautiful. He also says, what is it? Memento moris, remember love. And I mean, yeah, those are the two biggest themes of the movie, I would say.
Were you locked in?
Yeah, this was the point where I was almost crying. I was very locked in. I was thinking about how true that is. Everything we see thus far is truly how I think all of this would play out if it was to ever happen. So to have somebody like him saying this, asking these younger generations to remember this, what matters, I think that's very powerful.
For a world, at least this world, that has had its understanding of the dead, the undead, all of it so messed up, you know?
Mm-hmm. And there's that little piece of symbolism at the start, too, I forgot to mention, where Spike puts his action figure on the table. And it's almost kind of like he's saying goodbye to like whatever small childhood he had.
Right.
And for a while there, he was dead set on this reality of being a hunter, basically. And so it's nice that this doctor comes around and just teaches him how to feel, because maybe up until this point, he didn't even know how to feel properly.
If we're calling this a coming-of-age story, like, you're always wondering who is having an effect or changing the protagonist. And we have three figures that are all very different. We have Jamie, his father, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Not a bad guy, but a very guy. Very brusque, masculine. Has a violence and an anger to him. Has a good heart, but could be tripped up by just his own humanity. Then we have his mother, who is more sensitive, helps the pregnant infected, has a softer side. And then we have Kelson, who's kind of like in the middle. Mm-hmm. He is showing the middle route, which is he's kind of the third way forward of being a little bit of both, being truthful, being straightforward. Alfie Williams, who plays Spike, who we should just say is just so damn good in this movie.
Consistently.
Yeah, like not a false note. And you always worry with a child actor, like, when's this going to go wrong? And between him and Owen Cooper from Adolescence, like, those are two of the best young adolescent performances I've seen in a while. Mm-hmm. He's shouldering a lot in this scene and the whole movie, but especially in this scene. And he nails it. And I think he, you know, to come back to my point, is taking all three of those people with him into what comes next. And that's pretty cool to see that. And we'll see if that comes to fruition, you know? Like, that's the question.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, we must probably see the Doctor in the next film, right?
Well, he does not die.
Yeah.
So he's still alive.
Given the title as well.
I always say, till I see a body, every character can come back from anything.
I like that.
Well, there are no multiverses in the 28 franchise, are there?
Yes.
Last time I checked. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
All right. So speaking of multiverses, it feels a little out of this world what happens next, which is this ending where Jack O'Connell promised to us in this film, but we haven't seen him quite yet, pops up, saves Spike from infected as Spike is... Where's Spike going, by the way? Do we just... We don't know.
We don't know. He says, I think he says his dad something super ominous, like, I'll come back when I'm ready.
Okay. Pop off Spike. Runs into a horde of infected while he's grilling a little branzino, you know. Suddenly he's a chef. And he's saved by these platinum-wigged Jimmies, led by the main Jimmy, played by Jack O'Connell. You saw this last night. Can you remind me just, like, what goes down in this moment?
So he's being chased by the infected, Spike, and he comes across that blockade. I think it's a car blockade. I don't know, a blockade. And so he can't get past. He turns around, and then head Jimmy appears in his tracksuit and says, do you need some help? And then all the Jimmies show up, and it's very Power Rangers-y.
Right.
And they kung fu the zombies to death.
Yep.
And that's that.
And that's the film. And that's curtains. Didn't love this ending.
No.
I like the movie so much. I didn't need really much cliffhanger on-ramp into the sequel. Like, I'm gonna be there for the sequel. And that's what I said in my review. Like, you served up a great dish and you kind of gave me a weird dessert. Like, I'm coming back. The bona fides are there. Like, the movie's great. So this just felt like tacked on and odd. And I think there's a way it could have been seated better. I know we see young Jimmy in the very first scene of the movie. And that's a bookend, as Seth Rogen in the studio would say. That's appreciated. Jimmy shows up, like, carved into the hanging person. And I think we see the graffiti on a barn. Like, it's there. But could we have introduced the character, seated him a little better? I think it's possible.
We absolutely should, considering he's the third billed person.
Yeah, I know. That's bothering some people.
I mean...
especially coming off Sinners.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Listen, I think the ending would have been fine in another movie, just not this one. I think it either should have been done in the post-credits, if you're gonna do it.
Right.
But it was very odd, especially because we had such an emotional moment right before. And again, I'll stress, it's not that I hated this ending, that I wouldn't have liked it in another film, just not this one.
Yep.
I think also, for me personally, and this could be a me problem, I just hate setups for franchises. I really do. It reminds me of this kind of Marvelization of it all, basically.
Right.
And what you said, it doesn't need it. Especially, like, it just feels like I'm being baited. And especially for a series that started out feeling so singular. It's just not necessary. No,
it's not. That being said, I will be seated for the Bone Temple. We'll talk about that.
Me too.
Before we wrap up, what were the themes of this that most resonated with you?
Again, hope, remembrance. Yeah, those two. I mean, I feel like I've said so much before about the themes that resonated, and now I'm just drawing a blank. But yeah, I guess hope and desolation.
And those felt different from the other two 28 movies? Like what?
Well, that's why I think this was such a beautiful connect to the first one, and what really lacked for me in the second one was that lack of hope. I like to see it explored further as it is in this film so many years later.
For me, it was, well, I mentioned Spike and who he's being influenced by, but especially in the ending, just the spirituality of it was really bold and unique. I think that Westerners have a certain feeling about death, and it's something to cheat or avoid, or to extend your life as much as possible and put death far away. And this felt very Eastern to me, to what Dr. Kelson's kind of recommending, which is to stare it in the face, to accept it, to celebrate a life lived. I was with a friend watching it who did some grant work in Indonesia, and she was saying that when someone dies, like, a body will just be out for days. From the oldest person to the youngest kid has to just walk around with that body there. And imagine, like, how you feel about death if that's you. And I think that's what Kelson's trying to explain and show to Spike. Something that thought-provoking to be in this movie was wild.
I think it was the right thing to do. And I think the folks who are complaining that it's not action-packed enough, that it feels too much like a drama, I think that they're missing the point. And I think the spirituality is the point, and it's what matters the most about this film. So I'm with you there.
All right, so after that nice, beautiful talk, let's go into something more gauche. Where does this rank amongst the other 28 movies for you?
Second for me.
Second. Okay.
And
so you have 28 Days is number one. Mm-hmm. I'm cheating on my own podcast, but I would tie this with Weeks, but I don't know. Talking it through, like, it's more special than Weeks. And the world is dark enough. Shouldn't we celebrate something kind and thought-provoking? Weeks is just so ugly. I know that's the point, but it's like, it's so bleak. I don't want to watch it ever again. I would rewatch this. I don't want to watch Weeks again.
If it was its own movie, I think I would like it more, just not attached to this franchise.
The film Marta has an 89% certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but a audience score 65%. Bit of a difference there. Not uncommon with horror movies. We talked about why we like this because of everything that's so unique and special within it. Could those exact things being provoked, having to think through some themes within popular entertainment, could that be pissing people off or pushing them to the side a bit?
I don't know if it's... Yeah, actually, I yes, to put it bluntly.
So someone buys a ticket to a zombie movie and they watch it and they come out and they're like, what was all that about spirituality?
Yeah. I'm not surprised that would be the reaction, but I really think you just got to look at all of it as a whole. Like, I really think that it also helps to rewatch the original, right, and see where that ends. Right. It's not a zombie movie that ends in a bleak hellscape that we've come to expect with the genre. So to me, it makes sense that it was expanded upon this way. And yeah, I don't know. It's not really an excuse for me. I don't like that argument of it was too underwhelming and there wasn't enough gore and this and that. Doesn't fly with me.
Do you think people are saying that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that in online discussions. Actually, I've seen people very divided. People are either really, really liking it, or I get the argument that it's underwhelming, which right. I think it's a bit lazy.
Okay. Metacritic, it has a 76, so pretty critically well regarded. As for the naysayers, what are they naysaying? I think people dislike the ending a lot. I know there's some controversy because those Jimmies, which I didn't realize in the moment. I'm sorry, I'm not a British historian. I grew up here in the United States of America. That's a riff on Jimmy Savile, who was a television personality on the most popular show in Britain, Top of the Pops, has that shock of platinum hair, and was a absolutely horrific sexual predator, like heinous AF. Some people are saying, why is that being riffed on? That's in poor taste. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that, let's just hold on, let's see what Garland and Boyle are cooking up, because they're very thoughtful guys. Like, they're not making this joke or reference on a lark. I could see, though, the way that ending is, and we discussed not liking it that much, giving people like a knee-jerk, awful feeling. How do you feel about it?
I'm glad that you gave me the two options that you gave me that weren't, I
Good
hated it or I liked it. I like that you gave the option of either I hated it or wait, let me see where this will go, because that's where I stand on it right now. Wait, let me see where this will go, because I really do think, same with you, there is a reason behind it. That being said, I'm Canadian. I don't know if this would affect me more if I was living in the UK. I guess the best comparison you can make is if Mr. Rogers... Don't even say it. Don't even utter the sentence you're about to say. For the sake of the FBI, I guess you're in Canada, you're safe from extradition. Okay. But I know what you're going to say, but no. I know. I'm not going to say it. I just mean, if you could contextualize it in that way, would it have bothered you? I'm so sorry.
No, you've broken my brain. We love Mr. Rogers. Amazing man. Let's leave him out of this. The Jimmy Savile thing. Okay, sex criminal. Awful guy, for sure. Maybe the way this ending ends, it comes off as insensitive. But again, like, if we're going to read into it and try to understand it, his crimes came out in 2011. Our version of 2011 isn't these people's version of 2011. So his influence and the idolatry around him could still be very powerful without his crimes being revealed.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't know what that means. Maybe it has to do with the Jack O'Connell character, who's kind of a cult leader, who seems like a very bad guy. It's just my feeling. So I don't know the significance. The knee-jerk, I'm not there for, but I do get it feeling weird or bad for people. Mm-hmm. But it's like a to be continued. ...
Ellipses.
Exactly. But it's a little odd.
It's very odd. And that's what I was saying, or what we were both saying, is it just feels so strange to put that in when they put it in.
I just get such a kick out of this, but I see this online. Media literacy is like a term. Media literacy also involves understanding something has a sequel coming up, and like the answer could come then, and the conversation can be a little more nuanced than being like, oh, I hated that. You know?
Oh, I mean, who are you talking to? Are we even surprised that this is a problem? I don't know. At this point, I roll my eyes.
Okay. You're right. That's the better approach. Back to the naysayers. I think also maybe some people are taking exception to this being a bit tonally jumbled. It does feel like some different movies in one between the different acts. I think they sort of congeal, but you can feel the tension a little bit, like a choppiness. But again, like I also think that is exacerbated in good ways and bad by Danny Boyle's filmmaking, because he's a choppy director. Like that's kind of, it's this kinetic tension that he's kind of after always. So could be by design.
It felt very on brand, in my opinion. I think the only thing is some things I wish were explored more, but I never got the feeling that it was tonally all over the place. I guess except for the ending, but yeah.
And then from the UK itself, The Independent said that it felt like being bonked on the head by the metaphor hammer. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. Is that a bad thing?
I don't know. Maybe people need a good bonk on the head from the
people
metaphor
do need a good
hammer
bonk
sometimes.
On the head sometimes, yeah.
All right, so this opened on Friday. It's made $30 million domestic US. We're in different countries. Acknowledge my great neighbors to the north. I am half Canadian. You count within the 30 million international. So it made 60 million this past weekend on a budget of 75 million. Pretty strong opening. I think that trailer did magic. Like it was just so good. And I, again, will tell the listener, like, I'm sure you've seen the trailer many times by now if you're listening, but rewatch it because it's very effective. Word of mouth is good. Would you agree?
Yeah. I would agree.
I don't know. Just anecdotally, I look on Letterboxd and everyone and their mother is rewatching 28 Days, 28 Weeks. People are
so happy.
Fired up to get involved in this moment. So that's good.
It makes me happy until I see the bad reviews for 28 Days. They come up every so often and I'm like, oh, my heart.
Yeah, like someone gives it a 3.5. I'm like, what? How? What? It's like, yeah, like, I've seen it before. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, since.
No, for me, it's the argument that I hate how it was shot.
Oh, God. All right, Bone Temple is coming out already in January. It's already in the can. They shot it back to back. Nia DaCosta is directing. She made Little Woods, Candyman, and The Marvels. I wouldn't call that, like, a sterling reputation, but she's 35. I don't think any director, save for a few, should be blamed for like coming into the Marvel system and having no say, no artistic license to do anything. Let's give her a shot.
Why is it not Boyle? Do we know?
I don't know. But he said that he wants to come back for the third. Maybe he's working on something else. Interesting that he gave Nia DaCosta his blessing. Have you seen Candyman?
Not the remake, but that's because I really want to rewatch the original. I didn't really like it the first and only time I saw it, so I want to give it another go.
So are you excited for Bone Temple?
I mean, look. I said that I didn't really jive with the ending, and that's true. But that being said, I know you hinted at it earlier a little bit. Is it set up well? Am I excited? Of course I am. I mean, they bait you how they do that. My butt will be in that.
Jack O'Connell is electric.
Yes, and him as well. Like, I mean, I've loved him since Skins. Do you remember Skins?
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, of course I'll watch it. I'm only human. I'm just old and complaining a little bit by the delivery of that. But yeah, I am excited. Are you excited?
This movie was really good, so I have to say yes. I think Jack O'Connell's a shot in the arm. I think there's rumors that Cillian Murphy's returning, so that's exciting. And we'll see. Nia DaCosta has a movie coming up before this, Hedda Gabler, or it's called Hedda. It's the Hedda Gabler play, starring Tessa Thompson. So I think
Interesting.
I'll be very interested to see if that's successful, and if it is, I'll feel good, and if it's not, I won't feel so good.
Have you seen Candyman?
I've seen Candyman. I've seen the remake.
What did you think of the remake?
Not for me, but not terrible. That's all I got for us today. But Marta, this was great. This was such a deep dive into the film, and no stone was unturned. Oh, I had one more thing to say. No more CGI stampedes.
What?
I said how great of an image maker Danny Boyle is.
Oh, yes.
I love so many shots in this. CGI stampede, get that shit out.
Yeah, not interested.
CGI stampede of caribou in the latest True Detective season in Alaska, and that too looked incredibly fake. So just don't do it. And if that was an echo to the horse scene, which is one of the coolest, most beautiful moments in a horror movie maybe ever, you know what I'm talking about, in 28 Days,
yeah.
It just didn't work. So
I thought about that as well.
To get that off my chest.
Yeah, I thought about it being a callback to the original.
A bad
film.
one.
Yeah, a bad one. Honestly, it was so bad that when you said what you said right now and introduced it, I had no idea what you were talking about. I completely just blocked that out of my brain. Out of sight.
Everyone's been making fun of me for this point. They said, what do you want to do? I'm like, you got $75 million. Can you give $1 million to David Attenborough and his crew to film an actual stampede?
Horses.
Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not at all.
Danny, if you're listening, call National Treasure David Attenborough while he's still with us, and maybe get some real animals in your next film. All right, that's all I got. What about you? You got anything else you want to say? Anything you want to get off your chest?
I gotta end on that note.
My wine kicked in nicely.
Oh yeah, I gotta catch up to you.
Marta, this was great. Thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and your rewatching of the films, and then your watching of 28 Years. And I'm glad you liked it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I had the time of my life. I'm glad we finally did this, and I love the nuance that you bring to your podcast.
Was it actually the time of your life?
Yeah.
Okay, because you said that in a very low-key, I think that's just the Canadian in you, right?
No, that's just me post-vacation. Everything is very low-key
chill.
for me these days.
All right, well, great. I hope you're bringing that energy into the rest of your life. And listeners, I hope your cortisol levels are down, even though we just talked about a zombie movie. Marta, thank you so much for your first SchmearCast appearance. Yay. It was great. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.